government approved the new family code during the second day of the ninth regular session of the National Assembly of People's Power. In Panama, no agreement reached on the second day of a single dialogue table in which social organizations proposed a 30% reduction in the cost of basic food basket. The Japanese government approved the proposal to release radioactive wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the ocean. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Cuba, the second day of the ninth ordinary session of the National Assembly of People's Power progresses with the approval of the new family code. Legislators gave the green light to the 25th version of the draft after an intense consultation process that included input of legislators, experts, academics, and general population. The Minister of Justice, Oscar Silvera, points out that the current text is a more solid proposal impregnated with a popular wisdom with a high human content. He also said that it is a project for the all and that it is not a regular green or the pre-established family models. It will be submitted to a popular referendum on Saturday, September the 25th. The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, strongly criticized the U.S. Department of State for meddling in other countries' internal affairs, adding they decide when and where to do so. The Mexican head of state recalled the U.S. Department of State role of interfering in the democratic processes of many other nations with methods that include not only financial support to preferred parties and the circulation of propaganda, but also assassination and overthrow of democratically elected governments. López Obrador also called on President Joe Biden and other high U.S. government officials like Secretary of State Antony Blinken to free journalists and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who is being held in Belmarsh prison in London after the fighting what has become an uphill battle to avoid being extradited.
You must remember, with all due respect, that Mr. Blinken from the State Department was the first person to protest crimes against journalists in Mexico. And then came the deputies of the European Union. And that's why since he seems to care about the issue as much as we do, that's why I am asking them to release Julian Assange. And I am not going to stop asking for his freedom, because he is unjustly detained. He did not commit any crime, and the only thing he did was to reveal certain interference practices that violated human rights, and that's all he did.
The Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador submitted to Parliament a request for impeachment proceeding against the Minister of Interior, Patricio Carrillo Rosero, for his alleged responsibility in the violation of human rights during the protests. The CONAIE considered that the minister failed to comply with his functions and political responsibilities by erroneously applying international protocols and standards on the progressive and differentiated use of public force during the demonstrations in June. According to the document introduced by the organization, the lawsuit against Carrillo, submitted to the National Assembly by the Congressman Peter de Fernando Calo, is based on what is established by the Constitution regarding security. In Uruguay, an explosion was reported in an apartment building located in Montevideo, leaving 10 people injured, 3 of them in serious conditions. The explosion, which left several floors destroyed and other nearby buildings with their facades impacted, took place on Friday after 9 a.m. local time at Leyenda Patria and Hidalgo's streets. The Minister of the Interior, Luis Alberto Herbert, who attended the scene, said that the reasons for the explosion was not known and that no one was missing. Herbert reported that so far there are 3 people with serious injuries, 1 from carbon monoxide poisoning, and a married couple with burns of between 40% and 80% of their bodies.
It's a disaster. We are really shocked by the level of the explosion. But luckily, we did not report any missing people. There was a scary moment when one of the people did not appear. But luckily, she appeared. She was an employee who works on the 3rd floor. And then we are very worried about the health of the 3 people who are badly burned today. One with 80% of her body burned, and we are in the hands of the doctors, so that somehow they can take care of them. One of them is very complicated, and we hope there are no consequences.
Argentina's government suspended by decree the hiring of personnel in the significant part of the public sector. The decree, published on Friday with the signature of President Alberto Fernandez, some ministers, establishes in its considerations that it is appropriate to adopt these measures with a view to guarantee an effective and responsible use of national budget. Among the provisions are the term appointments in transitory plans, hearing for the rendering of autonomous professional services, and the hearing of personnel with or without an dependency relationship. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. In Panama, the parties involved in the talks did not reach an agreement after a second day of a single dialogue table. The union proposed a 30% reduction in the cost of the basic basket, as against the 15% discount proposed by the government. During the day, the members of the mobilized sectors focused on the country's economic model, where they point out that it should be reviewed. The mobilized unions agreed on a total of 8 points to present them to the executive in order to start the negotiation process. European Union officials launched new infringement procedures against the United Kingdom on Friday over the continuing North Ireland trade dispute that has strained Britain's relations with the bloc. In the news briefing, the UN Commission spokeswoman Ariana Podesta said the bloc approved 4 states of legal actions following the UK's unwillingness to engage in a meaningful manner in discussions. Podesta added that the continuing passage of a North Ireland bill protocol through the UK Parliament goes directly against the spirit of cooperation. The latest procedures came on top of actions launched on June 15. Russian, Turkish, Ukrainian, and UN delegations signed agreement in Istanbul on securing Ukrainian grain export. The signatories of the pact were Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, his Turkish counterpart Julio Akar, Ukrainian Infrastructure Minister Alexander Kurkov, under the auspices of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Antonio Guterres for the United Nations. The agreement will guarantee the exports of grain extended in the Ukrainian Black Sea port and was established this Friday in Istanbul. For its part, the Russian delegation specified that the agreement for the evacuation of the Ukrainian wheat is interrelated with the of the UN in the supply of Ukrainian food and fertilizers to the global market.
You have overcome obstacles and put aside differences to pave the way for an initiative that will serve the common interests of all. promoting the welfare of humanity, has been the driving force of these talks. The question has not been what is good for one side or the other. The focus has been on what matters most for the people of our world. And let there be no doubt, this is an agreement for the world. It will bring relief for developing countries on the edge of bankruptcy and the most vulnerable people on the edge of famine. And it will help stabilize global food prices, which were already at record levels even before the war, a true nightmare for developing countries.
Cameroon's energy ministry has said that Western sanctions on Russia have raised the cost of fuel imports and caused fuel shortages in the African nation. These fuel shortages this week turned hundreds of trucks carrying goods to neighboring Central African Republic and Chad at the borders. The government has not disclosed the extent of fuel shortages, but said it will import the necessary quantities for Africa and Europe. Another factor contributing to the rise in prices and the elimination of the subsidy is the pressure from the International Monetary Fund, which is demanding austerity measures to authorize loan to this African country. The World Health Organization indicated that a heatwave in Europe was responsible for around 1,700 deaths in Spain and Portugal, on call for joint actions to address climate change. World Health Organization's Regional Director for Europe, Hans Kugel, noted that the expansive heat wave not only caused deaths but also created a steady stream of wildfires in several European countries. He further explained that figure is a preliminary estimate based on reports from national authorities and that the death toll will rise in the coming days. Meanwhile, the European Forest Fire Information System, FTS, report that 2022 fire season in Spain has not yet ended. Wildfire that has consumed almost 200,000 hectares of forests. They also indicate that in less than 7 months, the area affected exceeded the whole of 2012. Spanish authorities indicated that fire is still out of control in Galicia, where a wave of fires in several municipalities have left more than 13,000 hectares burned. And we have more news coming up after this financial break, so don't go away. Welcome back. Japan government approved proposal to release radioactive wastewater from Fukushima nuclear power plant into the ocean. The Asian countries' nuclear regulatory authorities authorized the release of toxic water for next spring, a fact which caused people to take the streets in opposition to the measure. The agency explained that the plan is that this wastewater, which contains radioactive titanium, will be discharged through an underwater tunnel into the sea to be treated later. It is for this part, the TEPCO company assured that it signs an agreement with Fukushima's prefecture and the city that hosts the Okumar and Futuba plants, in which it assured that the discharge facilities will be constructed. In response to the national government approval, citizens demonstrated in the nation's capital against dumping nuclear contaminated water into the ocean. Although the decision was a tangible effect by many people across the country, protesters said they were informed on the decision at very short notice. In an exclusive interview with the global news agency AFP, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko reaffirmed the conflict in Ukraine must end to avoid a large-scale disaster with nuclear weapons.
Let us stop. We must not go any further. Any further is the abyss. Any further is nuclear war. It must not go that far.
Somalia reports at least 40 deaths from cholera, nearly 8,000 cases of the disease and prolonged drought in the country. Somali officials have reported as of Thursday a total of 7,796 cases of people who have contracted the disease so far this year. The World Health Organization registered some for cholera-related deaths in Mogadishu during the same period. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization warned that the high rates of malnutrition and drug have exacerbated the fragility of the humanitarian situation in the country, causing large numbers of people to be displaced for there is no health system in place. In Libya, at least 13 people were killed and nearly 13 others were injured during clashes between militia in the capital, Tripoli. Among the fatalities in these events were 3 civilians and an 11-year-old boy. It is presumed that the cause of the conflict was the capture of one of the members of these militia by rival groups. Reports indicate that another brigade intervened to mediate positioning their arms vehicle to the east of the capital before being attacked by the heavy gunfire. Both groups involved in the fighting are loyal to Abdullahim Dabi's government of national course appointed last year as part of the UN-backed peace process to end more than a decade of violence following the NATO military intervention that killed the country's leader, Muammar al-Gaddafi, in 2011. Mali authorities said it had repelled a suicide raid by the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists at a town of the fringes of the capital that houses a base used by the ruling military. One of the Africa's most turbulent nations, Mali is struggling with terrorist insurgency and political turbulence, experiencing 2 coups between the last 2 years. Suicide attackers brought 2 big explosive land vehicles, assaulting an armed mob at the Gerson town of Kati, 9 miles from Bamako, according to an army statement. 1 soldier was killed and 6 other people, including a civilian, were wounded, while 7 attackers were neutralized and 8 were detained. The attack was launched at around 5 a.m. local time, was mounted against an installation of the Army Department for the equipment, hydrocarbons, and transport. The residents said they heard the gunfire and explosions at dawn. teleSUR English continues to grow. The signal now reaches Europe, and you can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on their screen are in place since July 1st, and quite soon for the changes will be implemented in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us, and our stories are being heard all around the globe. This news multi-platform will continue providing trustful content to oppose the humanist media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. Oh yes, sir, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For teleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.